The rain came down like a judgment over Chicago. It wasn't the soft, romantic kind of rain that people wrote songs about. This was cold, relentless, the type that soaked through fabric in seconds and turned the streets into rivers of gray. The kind of rain that made people hurry home, lock their doors, and pretend the world outside didn't exist. Vincent Hale stood in the shadows of an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district, watching the taillights of a black sedan disappear into the storm. The meeting had gone exactly as he'd expected. Tense, territorial, full of unspoken threats wrapped in polite language. Business in his world was always a delicate balance between respect and intimidation, and tonight had required both. He was 34 years old, but he carried himself with the weight of someone who'd lived twice that long. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that was just beginning to show traces of silver at the temples. His eyes were the color of steel, and they rarely revealed what he was thinking. People feared Vincent Hale, and for good reason. He'd built his reputation on being untouchable, unreadable, and unforgiving when crossed. But tonight, as he pulled his coat tighter against the rain and walked toward his SUV, Vincent felt something unusual. Exhaustion. Not physical. He'd been tired before countless times. This was different. A weariness that settled in his chest, in the spaces between his thoughts. He was tired of the endless cycle, the meetings, the threats, the constant vigilance required to maintain control in a world where weakness meant elimination. Marcus, his right-hand man and the closest thing he had to a friend, climbed into the passenger seat as Vincent started the engine. Marcus was 40, stocky, with a face that had seen too many fights and survived them all. He was loyal to the core, smart, and one of the few people Vincent trusted completely. That went better than expected, Marcus said, brushing rain from his jacket. Thompson's crew will stay on their side of the river. For now. Vincent nodded, pulling out of the industrial lot onto the empty street. For now was the best anyone could hope for in this business. Permanent peace didn't exist. Only temporary truces and strategic alliances that lasted until someone saw an opportunity. The wipers swept across the windshield in rhythmic intervals, fighting a losing battle against the downpour. The streets were deserted at this hour, nearly 2 in the morning. Most of the city was asleep, safe in their homes, unaware of the negotiations and power plays that happened in the dark corners of Chicago. "You look tired, boss," Marcus observed, glancing at Vincent's profile. "I'm fine. You've been saying that for 6 months." Vincent didn't respond. Marcus wasn't wrong, but admitting it wouldn't change anything. This was the life he'd chosen, or perhaps the life that had chosen him. Either way, there was no exit. Men like Vincent Hale didn't retire. They either died or they kept moving forward until something stopped them. They drove in silence through the rain-soaked streets, heading toward Vincent's penthouse downtown. The route took them through an area that was transitioning, too industrial to be residential, too abandoned to be safe. Empty lots, closed businesses, chain-link fences surrounding nothing of value. The kind of neighborhood where people didn't walk alone at night. Which was why when Vincent saw the 3 figures standing in the middle of the street, he immediately hit the brakes. The SUV skidded slightly on the wet asphalt before coming to a stop, headlights illuminating the scene ahead. "What the—" Marcus leaned forward, squinting through the rain-streaked windshield. Vincent's eyes narrowed. 3 people. Small figures. One taller than the others, swaying unsteadily. 2 much smaller shapes on either side, holding onto the taller figure. "Boss, we should keep moving," Marcus said, his hand instinctively moving toward his jacket. This could be a setup. Vincent's jaw tightened. His first instinct agreed with Marcus. In their world, coincidences were often traps. But something about the scene felt wrong, or rather felt desperately real in a way that had nothing to do with their business. "Stay alert," Vincent said, putting the vehicle in park and opening his door. The rain hit him immediately, cold and punishing. He moved toward the figures, his hand ready but not reaching for anything yet. As he got closer, details emerged from the darkness and the downpour. A woman, young, maybe late 20s, dark hair plastered to her face, clothes completely soaked through. She was on her knees on the wet street, and Vincent could see her body trembling, whether from cold or something else, he couldn't tell yet. But what made him stop completely, what sent an unfamiliar chill through his chest, were the 2 little girls clutching her arms. Identical twins, no more than 6 years old, with matching blonde hair darkened by the rain. They wore thin jackets that did nothing against the storm, and their small faces were pale with cold and fear. "Ma'am," Vincent called out, his voice cutting through the sound of rain. "Are you hurt?" The woman's head lifted slightly. Even through the darkness and the rain, Vincent could see the fear in her eyes. More than fear. Terror. The kind of terror that came from running for your life and realizing you had nowhere left to run. She tried to speak, but her voice came out as barely a whisper, lost in the storm. Vincent moved closer, deliberately keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "My name is Vincent. I'm not going to harm you. Can you tell me what happened?" Marcus had exited the SUV now, standing a few feet behind Vincent, scanning the surrounding area for threats. His instincts were good. If this woman was running from something, that something might still be close. Vincent knelt down, bringing himself to the woman's eye level. Up close, he could see more. A cut above her eyebrow, blood mixing with rainwater and running down her temple, bruising starting to darken along her cheekbone, a split lip. Her breathing was labored, shallow, like each inhale caused discomfort. The two little girls stared at him with wide, terrified eyes. They didn't cry. They didn't speak. They just held onto their mother with small, white-knuckled hands, as if letting go would mean disappearing into the storm forever. "Please," the woman finally managed, her voice hoarse and breaking. "Please, don't hurt them." Those 5 words landed in Vincent's chest like a silent bullet. He'd heard countless pleas in his life, heard people beg for mercy, for second chances, for their lives. Most of the time, those pleas were from people who'd made choices that led them to that moment. People in his world who understood the rules and the consequences of breaking them. But this was different. This woman wasn't begging for herself. She was barely conscious, obviously injured, kneeling in the rain in the middle of the night with 2 terrified children, and her only thought was protecting them. "I'm not going to hurt anyone," Vincent said quietly, his voice steady and firm. "But you need help, all 3 of you. Let me get you somewhere dry and safe." The woman's eyes searched his face, trying to determine if she could trust him. Vincent understood the calculation happening in her mind. She had no good options, only less dangerous ones. He was a stranger. It was the middle of the night. She was vulnerable in every possible way, but she was also out of choices. "What's your name?" Vincent asked, still keeping his voice gentle. "Lauren," she whispered. "Lauren Hayes." "Lauren, I'm going to help you stand up. Is that okay?" She nodded weakly. Vincent carefully placed one hand under her arm, supporting her as she tried to rise. Her legs barely held her weight, and she would have collapsed again if Vincent hadn't been holding her steady. The 2 little girls refused to let go of their mother, their small hands gripping Lauren's jacket with desperate strength. "Marcus, bring the vehicle closer," Vincent called over his shoulder. Marcus hesitated for only a second before nodding and jogging back to the SUV. Vincent understood his hesitation. This was beyond irregular. They didn't pick up strays. They didn't get involved in situations that didn't concern their business. And they certainly didn't bring unknowns into their world. But Vincent couldn't walk away. Something about Lauren's plea, about the way she'd positioned her body to shield her daughters even while barely conscious, had triggered something in him he thought he'd buried years ago. The SUV pulled up beside them, and Marcus opened the back door. Vincent guided Lauren toward the vehicle, the 2 little girls following like shadows. "It's okay," Vincent said to the children, his voice softer than Marcus had ever heard it. "You're safe now, I promise." One of the twins, Vincent couldn't tell them apart yet, looked up at him with enormous blue eyes. "Mommy's hurt," she said, her voice so small it was almost lost in the rain. "I know," Vincent replied. "We're going to help her. What's your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered. The other twin spoke up, equally quiet. "I'm Lucy." "Lily and Lucy," Vincent repeated, committing the names to memory. "Nice to meet you. Let's get you all somewhere warm, okay?" He helped Lauren into the back seat and the twins climbed in after her, immediately pressing against their mother's sides. Lauren's head fell back against the seat, her eyes closing. She was at the end of her endurance. Vincent closed the door and moved to the front passenger side, sliding in next to Marcus, who was already driving. "Where are we going, boss?" Marcus asked, his tone carefully neutral, but with an undertone of concern. "The safe house on Ashland," Vincent said. "The private one." Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly. That property was Vincent's personal backup location, not known to most of his organization, kept separate from business operations. It was where Vincent went when he needed complete isolation or security. "Boss, I have to say this. We don't know who she is, what she's running from, or who might be following her. I know. Taking her to a secure location connects us to whatever situation she's in." "I know," Vincent repeated, his voice firmer now. Marcus fell silent, but Vincent could feel the questions radiating from his friend. He had questions himself, plenty of them. But right now, those questions could wait. Right now, 3 people in the back of his vehicle were soaked, injured, and terrified, and they needed immediate help. The drive to the safe house took 15 minutes. Vincent kept glancing in the rearview mirror, watching Lauren and the twins. The girls had curled up against their mother, their small bodies seeking warmth and comfort. Lauren's eyes remained closed, but her arms were wrapped protectively around her daughters, even in her exhausted state. The safe house was a modest 2-story home in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that didn't attract attention. Vincent owned it under a different name, kept it maintained but rarely used it. It had security features that weren't obvious from the outside: reinforced doors, surveillance cameras disguised as ordinary fixtures, a safe room in the basement. Marcus pulled into the detached garage, and the door closed automatically behind them. Inside the house, Vincent turned on lights and adjusted the thermostat. The place was clean, furnished simply but comfortably. It felt more like a home than Vincent's downtown penthouse ever had. He returned to the SUV and opened the back door. Lauren was barely conscious now, her body finally giving in to exhaustion and whatever injuries she'd sustained. "Lauren," Vincent said gently, "we're here. Can you walk?" Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "The girls, they're right here. They're safe." Vincent helped Lauren out of the vehicle, essentially carrying most of her weight. Lily and Lucy followed, their small hands now reaching for each other instead of their mother, as if they understood they needed to let Vincent help. Inside, Vincent guided Lauren to the living room couch. She collapsed onto it, and the twins immediately climbed up beside her. Marcus appeared with towels and blankets, his movements efficient despite his obvious reservations about the situation. "Lily, Lucy," Vincent said, kneeling in front of the couch so he was at their eye level. "Your mom needs to rest. Can you help me by staying right here while I get some dry clothes for everyone?" The twins nodded in unison, those identical blue eyes tracking his every movement. Upstairs, Vincent found clean clothes, t-shirts and sweatpants that would be enormous on the girls but at least dry. He grabbed a first aid kit from the bathroom. When he returned downstairs, Marcus had made hot tea, and the twins were wrapped in blankets, still pressed against their unconscious mother. "Here," Vincent said, handing the small clothes to the girls. "These will be too big, but they're warm. There's a bathroom right through that door if you want to change." Lily looked at Lucy, some silent communication passing between them. Then Lily spoke, her voice tentative. "Can Lucy stay with Mommy? I'll change, then we'll switch." The level of care these children showed for each other, the way they'd already developed strategies to manage fear and protect their small family unit. It told Vincent volumes about what their life had been like. "That's a good plan," Vincent agreed. While Lily changed in the bathroom, Vincent carefully examined Lauren's injuries. The cut on her forehead wasn't deep but needed cleaning. The bruising on her face was concerning but not immediately dangerous. What worried him more was the way she held her left side. Possible rib injury. Marcus stood nearby watching. "We should take her to a hospital." "And tell them what?" Vincent replied quietly. "That we found her on the street and don't know anything about the situation. That would involve police questions, records. If she's running from something, that could make things worse. If she has internal injuries, I'll assess first. If it's serious, we'll make the call." Lily emerged from the bathroom, swimming in an adult-sized t-shirt that reached her knees. Lucy took her turn, and Vincent waited patiently. When both girls were in dry clothes, he retrieved the first aid kit. "Your mom has some cuts that need cleaning," Vincent explained to the twins. "It might look scary, but I'm just going to make sure they're not infected. Is that okay?" Lily nodded solemnly. Lucy reached out and touched her mother's hand. Vincent worked carefully, cleaning the cut on Lauren's forehead, checking her pupils for signs of head injury, gently probing her ribs. She stirred occasionally but didn't fully wake. When he was satisfied that her injuries, while painful, weren't life-threatening, he covered her with another blanket. "Is Mommy going to be okay?" Lucy whispered. "Yes," Vincent said with certainty. "She's very tired, and she's hurt, but she's going to be okay. She just needs to rest." "Where are we?" Lily asked, her eyes taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. "You're in a safe place," Vincent answered. "No one knows you're here except me and my friend Marcus. No one can hurt you here." The twins exchanged another one of their silent looks. They'd learned not to trust easily. That much was obvious. But they were also children, exhausted and scared, and the warm house, dry clothes, and Vincent's calm presence were slowly penetrating their defenses. "Are you hungry?" Vincent asked. Both girls nodded. In the kitchen, Vincent found crackers, peanut butter, and some fruit that was still good. He made simple sandwiches, cut them into small pieces, and brought them to the living room with glasses of water. The twins ate slowly, methodically, like they'd learned not to waste food. Marcus pulled Vincent aside while the girls ate. "Boss, we need to talk about this." "I know. Who is she? What was she running from? And more importantly, who's looking for her?" "I don't know yet," Vincent admitted. "But those injuries weren't from a fall. Someone did that to her." "Exactly. Which means someone's going to come looking. And when they find out she's under your protection, then they'll learn what happens when you hunt women and children in my city." Vincent interrupted, his voice cold enough to drop the temperature in the room. Marcus studied his boss's face for a long moment. "You're getting involved." "I'm already involved. This isn't like our usual business, Vincent. This is personal, emotional. That makes it complicated." "Everything's complicated," Vincent replied. He looked back toward the living room where Lily and Lucy were finishing their sandwiches, occasionally glancing at their sleeping mother. "But some things are simple too. She asked me not to hurt them." Those were her first words, not "help me," not "save me." She was half-conscious, injured, terrified, and her only thought was protecting her daughters. So that means something," Vincent said quietly. "That means she's not part of our world. She's not playing games or running schemes. She's just a mother trying to keep her children safe, and someone hurt her. Someone made her so afraid that she was running through the rain in the middle of the night with 2 6-year-olds, so desperate that getting into a stranger's vehicle seemed like the better option." Marcus sighed, recognizing the tone in Vincent's voice. When Vincent made a decision, he didn't change his mind. "What do you want me to do?" "Find out everything you can about Lauren Hayes, who she is, where she came from, and who might be looking for her. But be discreet. I don't want anyone knowing she's here until we understand the situation. That'll take time." "Then start now." Marcus nodded and pulled out his phone, moving toward the kitchen to make calls. Vincent returned to the living room, where both twins had curled up on the floor next to the couch, their small bodies finally giving in to exhaustion. They'd positioned themselves so they could see their mother, even in sleep maintaining their protective vigil. Vincent grabbed 2 more blankets and carefully covered the girls. Neither stirred. He sat in the armchair across from the couch, watching all 3 of them sleep, and tried to understand what he'd just done. He'd built his entire life on control, on calculated decisions, on never letting emotion override logic. He'd created an empire built on respect, fear, and the understanding that Vincent Hale didn't make mistakes or show weakness. But tonight, he'd broken his own rules. He'd stopped for strangers. He'd brought them into his private space. He'd committed to protecting them without knowing the cost or consequences. And the strangest part? He didn't regret it. Something about Lauren's plea, about the way she'd tried to shield her daughters with her own injured body, had cracked something open in Vincent's chest that he'd kept sealed for years. It reminded him of his own childhood, of his own mother who'd tried to protect him from a father's anger and a world's cruelty. She'd failed, not because she didn't try, but because sometimes love wasn't enough against that kind of darkness. But maybe this time could be different. Maybe he could be the intervention that never came for him. The rain continued outside, hammering against the windows in relentless waves. Inside, the house was warm, quiet except for the soft breathing of 3 people who, just an hour ago, had been alone in the storm with nowhere to go and no one to help them. Vincent's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Starting the search. This might take a while." Vincent replied, "Take all the time you need. They're not going anywhere." He settled deeper into the armchair, his eyes never leaving the sleeping figures. Outside, somewhere in the Chicago night, someone was probably still looking for Lauren Hayes. Someone who'd hurt her, who'd made her run, who wouldn't stop until they found her again. But they'd have to go through Vincent first. And that, he thought with cold certainty, was going to be a problem for them. Because Vincent Hale had just made a choice that changed everything. He was going to protect this woman and her daughters, no matter what it cost him. The storm raged on outside, but inside, for the first time in years, Vincent felt like he was doing something that actually mattered, something worth the consequences that would inevitably come. Morning light filtered through the curtains in soft golden streams, a stark contrast to the violent storm that had raged through the night. The rain had finally stopped sometime before dawn, leaving the world outside clean and quiet, as if the storm had washed away more than just dirt from the streets. Vincent hadn't slept. He'd remained in the armchair throughout the night, watching over the three figures in his living room. It wasn't something he could explain rationally. The need to stay vigilant, to make sure they were safe, to be there if they woke frightened or confused. He'd built a career on delegating, on trusting others to handle details while he managed the bigger picture. But this felt different. This felt personal in a way that bypassed all his usual logic. Around 6 in the morning, Marcus had returned with coffee and a folder of preliminary information. They'd spoken in low voices in the kitchen, careful not to wake the sleeping family. Lauren Marie Hayes, Marcus had reported, sliding a tablet across the counter with a photo that matched the woman on the couch. 27 years old, born in Cincinnati, moved to Chicago 5 years ago. Works, or worked, as a nurse at Mercy General Hospital, or at least she did until 3 weeks ago when she stopped showing up for shifts. Vincent studied the photo. It showed a smiling woman with warm brown eyes and dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger in the picture, lighter somehow, as if the weight she now carried hadn't yet settled on her shoulders. The twins? Vincent asked. Lily and Lucy Hayes, 6 years old, born right here in Chicago. They were enrolled at Lincoln Elementary until a month ago. Records show Lauren pulled them out, citing family circumstances. What kind of family circumstances? Marcus's expression darkened. That's where it gets complicated. Lauren was married to Derek Hayes, 32. They separated 8 months ago. According to court records, Lauren filed for a protective order 6 months back. Vincent's jaw tightened. What were the grounds? The filing cited threatening behavior, escalating confrontations, and concerns for the safety of herself and her children. The order was granted temporarily, then made permanent 3 months ago. Derek was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from Lauren and the girls. Obviously, he didn't comply. No record of him being arrested for breaking it, but that doesn't mean he didn't. Means Lauren probably didn't report it. A lot of people don't. They're too afraid of making things worse. Vincent nodded slowly, pieces of the puzzle beginning to form a clearer picture. What else? Derek Hayes has connections. Not major, but enough to be concerning. He's associated with a crew that operates on the south side. The Riverside Group, you know them? Vincent knew them. Small-time operations, mostly focused on running betting schemes and managing certain businesses that existed in legal gray areas. Not significant enough to be on Vincent's radar normally, but problematic enough that they could make life difficult for someone like Lauren if they wanted to. What's Derek's role with them? Middle management, basically. He handles collections, enforces agreements, keeps things running smoothly. He's not leadership, but he's connected enough that he can call in favors. And now he's looking for his ex-wife. According to what I could find, he's been searching for 3 weeks. Ever since Lauren disappeared with the girls, she's been moving around, shelters mostly, staying nowhere more than a few nights. Last known location was a women's shelter on the east side, but she left there 4 days ago. Vincent processed this information, his mind already working through implications and potential complications. Derek Hayes was looking for Lauren, had the resources to make that search effective, and clearly had no intention of respecting the legal boundaries that had been set. There's one more thing, Marcus added, his tone suggesting this was the most important piece. Derek owes money, significant money, to people higher up in the Riverside organization. Word is, he's desperate to pay it back because the timeline's getting short and the consequences for failure are severe. How does Lauren factor into that? I don't know yet, but my guess. She knows something, has something, or represents something he needs to clear that debt. Otherwise, why search this hard for an ex-wife who left him? Vincent looked toward the living room where Lauren and the twins still slept. The morning light made them look peaceful, almost serene, and it was hard to reconcile that image with the desperate, terrified woman he'd found in the rain. Keep digging, Vincent said. I want to know everything about Derek Hayes. Where he operates, who he associates with, and exactly what kind of pressure he's under. And find out why he needs Lauren specifically. Boss, getting involved with the Riverside crew could create complications. They're technically neutral in our territory agreements. They stopped being neutral when one of their people started hunting a woman and 2 children through my city, Vincent replied, his voice carrying an edge of cold steel. I want information, Marcus, get it? Marcus nodded and left to continue his research. Vincent poured himself another cup of coffee and moved back to the living room, settling into his observation post in the armchair. The twins woke first, around 7:30. Lucy stirred initially, her small body shifting under the blanket. Her eyes opened slowly, taking in the unfamiliar ceiling, the strange room, the morning light. For a moment, confusion flickered across her face, followed immediately by panic as she tried to remember where she was and why. Then her eyes found her mother on the couch, still sleeping, and some of the fear eased. Lucy sat up carefully, her blonde hair tangled from sleep, and looked around until her gaze landed on Vincent in the armchair. They stared at each other for a long moment. Vincent remained still, keeping his expression neutral and non-threatening. He understood what was happening in the child's mind, the slow process of remembering the previous night, of reconciling fear with the morning's relative safety. "Good morning, Lucy," Vincent said quietly. "Did you sleep okay?" Lucy nodded slowly, still watching him with cautious eyes. A moment later, Lily woke up, going through the same process of disorientation and gradual memory. She reached for her sister immediately, and the twins huddled together, two small figures wrapped in blankets too large for them. "Are you hungry?" Vincent asked. "I can make breakfast." "Where's Mommy going to wake up?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Soon, I think. She was very tired last night. Her body needed rest to heal." "Is she really okay?" Lucy pressed. "You promised she would be." "I did promise, and I keep my promises. Your mom is going to be fine. She has some injuries that will take time to heal, but she's safe now. You all are." The twins exchanged one of their silent looks, that mysterious communication that only twins seem to possess. Vincent had noticed it last night and found it fascinating now, the way they could convey entire conversations without words. "I'm going to make some breakfast," Vincent said, standing slowly so as not to startle them. "You can stay here with your mom or come with me to the kitchen. Whatever feels comfortable." To his mild surprise, both girls stood up, keeping their blankets wrapped around their shoulders like protective capes, and followed him to the kitchen. They maintained a careful distance, about 6 feet back, watching his every movement with those identical blue eyes. Vincent opened the refrigerator, mentally cataloging what was available. The safe house was always kept stocked with basics, though he rarely cooked here. "How do you feel about pancakes?" Both girls' eyes widened slightly, the first real sign of enthusiasm he'd seen from them. "Chocolate chip pancakes?" Lily asked hopefully. "I can make that happen," Vincent replied. He moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, mixing batter, heating the griddle, and locating a bag of chocolate chips in the pantry. The twins watched from their safe distance, gradually inching closer as their curiosity overcame their caution. "Can we help?" Lucy asked tentatively. Vincent paused, spatula in hand. These were children who'd been taught to make themselves small, to not cause trouble, to be grateful for whatever scraps of safety and kindness came their way. The fact that Lucy was brave enough to ask for inclusion meant something. "I'd appreciate the help," Vincent said. "Can you count to 12? Both girls nodded. "Perfect. I need exactly 12 chocolate chips for each pancake." "Think you can handle that?" He poured 4 circles of batter onto the griddle, and the twins approached, their small hands carefully placing chocolate chips in precise patterns. Vincent watched them work with meticulous concentration, their little tongues poking out slightly as they counted, making sure each pancake received exactly the right amount. 11, 12, Lily announced triumphantly. "Excellent work," Vincent said seriously, as if they'd just completed a critical mission. "You're officially my pancake assistants." The smallest hint of a smile touched Lucy's face, the first smile Vincent had seen from either girl. They continued the process, the twins counting chocolate chips while Vincent managed the cooking. It was a simple domestic scene, mundane in its ordinariness, yet it felt significant in ways Vincent couldn't quite articulate. These children had been through something traumatic, were still processing fear and uncertainty, yet here they were, finding small moments of normalcy and counting chocolate chips. "Do you like to cook?" Vincent asked as he flipped the pancakes. "Mommy teaches us sometimes," Lily said. "She makes really good spaghetti. And grilled cheese," Lucy added. "With tomato soup. Those sound delicious. She always cuts the sandwiches diagonal," Lily continued, warming to the topic. "She says triangles taste better than squares." Vincent smiled slightly. "Your mom sounds smart." "She is," both girls said in unison with absolute conviction. The pancakes were ready, and Vincent plated them with syrup and butter. He poured orange juice for the girls and made fresh coffee for himself. They were just sitting down at the kitchen table when a soft sound from the living room caught everyone's attention. Lauren was waking up. Vincent stood immediately, moving toward the living room with the twins right behind him. Lauren was sitting up on the couch, one hand pressed to her forehead, her expression disoriented and pained. When she saw them approaching, her eyes widened with instant panic. Lily! Lucy! She tried to stand, but her body betrayed her, and she would have fallen if Vincent hadn't been there to steady her. Easy, he said firmly but gently. You're injured. You need to move slowly. My girls, where are my... We're here, Mommy. Both twins rushed forward, wrapping their small arms around their mother. Lauren pulled them close, her eyes squeezing shut as she held them tightly. Her whole body was trembling, and Vincent could see tears tracking down her cheeks. You're okay. You're both okay. We're fine, Mommy, Lily assured her. Vincent made us pancakes with exactly 12 chocolate chips each. Lauren's eyes opened, finding Vincent's face. In the morning light, he could see her injuries more clearly. The cut on her forehead had been cleaned. The bruising on her cheek was darkening to purple. Her split lip was swollen, but it was her eyes that held his attention. Brown eyes filled with confusion, fear, gratitude, and 1,000 questions. Where are we? She asked, her voice hoarse. Somewhere safe, Vincent replied. Do you remember last night? Lauren's brow furrowed as she tried to piece together fragmented memories. It was raining. We were walking. I couldn't go back there. He would have found us. And then there were lights and you... Her voice trailed off as the memories became clearer. You stopped. You helped us. I did. Why? It was a simple question with a complicated answer. Vincent settled for the most honest version. Because you needed help. And I was there to give it. Lauren looked around the room, taking in the comfortable furniture, the warm lighting, the obvious security of the space. Who are you? My name is Vincent Hale. This is my property. You're safe here. Vincent Hale, Lauren repeated slowly, and something in her expression changed. A flicker of recognition, perhaps, or realization. I've heard that name. Probably, Vincent acknowledged. He wasn't going to lie about who he was or what he did. But right now what matters is that you and your daughters are safe and no one knows you're here. Lauren's arms tightened around the twins. He's looking for us. Derek, my ex-husband. He won't stop. He never stops. I know. My associate is gathering information about the situation. But first you need to eat something and let me check your injuries in the daylight. I can't pay you, Lauren said quickly, her voice taking on a desperate edge. I don't have money. I don't have anything. I can't. I'm not asking for payment, Vincent interrupted, and you're not in my debt. Consider this what it is. Help, freely given with no strings attached. Lauren stared at him as if he were speaking a foreign language. In her experience, Vincent realized, nothing came for free. Everything had a cost, a condition, a consequence. I don't understand, she whispered. You don't have to understand right now. You just have to accept it. Can you do that? After a long moment, Lauren nodded slowly. The twins were still pressed against her, and Vincent could see how much strength it took for her to hold herself upright. Come to the kitchen, he said. There are pancakes, and then we need to have a conversation about what happens next. With Vincent's assistance, Lauren made it to the kitchen table. The twins sat on either side of her, close enough that their bodies touched, maintaining their protective formation. Vincent brought over a plate of pancakes and the orange juice, then sat across from them with his coffee. Lauren ate slowly, mechanically, as if food were fuel rather than something to be enjoyed. The twins watched her with concerned eyes, occasionally touching her arm as if to reassure themselves she was really there. How long was I asleep? Lauren asked between bites. About 6 hours, Vincent replied. It's 8:30 in the morning. You were exhausted. I can't remember the last time I slept 6 hours. She paused, setting down her fork. I need to thank you properly. What you did last night, stopping, helping us, bringing us here. Most people wouldn't have done that. Most people aren't in a position to do what I did, Vincent said carefully. But I was, so I did. Lauren studied his face, clearly trying to understand him, to figure out what his angle was. Vincent understood the scrutiny. In her situation, trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. The cut on your forehead needed cleaning, Vincent said, shifting the conversation. I did what I could last night, but you should let me check it again. How's your pain level? Manageable, Lauren said, though Vincent could see she was lying. The way she held herself, the careful way she moved. She was hurting more than she wanted to admit. Do you have pain in your ribs when you breathe? Lauren hesitated, then nodded. Left side. It's not terrible, just uncomfortable. Probably bruised, possibly cracked. You'll need to take it easy for a few weeks. No heavy lifting, no sudden movements. He paused. Lauren, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Do you need to go to a hospital? No. The response was immediate and panicked. No hospitals. They'd have to report it. There would be questions, records, and Derek has connections. He'd find out. He'd find us. Vincent nodded slowly. He'd suspected as much. Okay, no hospital, but you need to promise me that if anything gets worse, if you have trouble breathing, severe pain, anything, you'll tell me immediately. I promise. Good. Vincent took a sip of his coffee. Now we need to talk about Derek. Lauren's whole body tensed. The twins, sensing their mother's fear, pressed closer to her. Lily reached out and took Lauren's hand, holding it tightly. What do you want to know? Lauren asked quietly. Everything. But let's start with the basics. Why is he looking for you? Lauren was quiet for a long moment, her eyes distant as if watching scenes from the past play out in her mind. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, but laced with old pain. Derek and I met 7 years ago. I was working at the hospital and he came in with a friend who'd been injured. He was charming, attentive, seemed like someone who had his life together. We got married fast. Too fast. I got pregnant with the girls 6 months later. She paused to take a sip of orange juice, gathering her thoughts. The twins sat quietly, having heard pieces of this story before but never the whole truth. Things changed after the girls were born. Derek became different. More controlling, more paranoid. He started getting involved with people. Business associates, he called them. The Riverside Group. I didn't know what they did at first, didn't want to know. But it became obvious they weren't running legitimate operations. When did it become dangerous? Vincent asked. About 2 years ago. Derek started keeping late hours, coming home angry or wired or both. He'd get these phone calls that would make him furious. Money was always a problem. Either we had too much and I wasn't supposed to ask where it came from, or we had none, and that was somehow my fault. Lauren's hand trembled slightly, and Lily squeezed it tighter. The girls and I started walking on eggshells. We learned to be quiet, to not ask questions, to make ourselves invisible when Derek was in a certain mood. I kept thinking if I just managed things better, if I just kept everything perfect, it would be okay. But it wasn't, Vincent said quietly. No, it got worse. Derek's involvement with the Riverside Group deepened. He started bringing work home, not physically, but mentally. He'd talk on the phone about debts and collections and people who weren't holding up their end, and he started looking at me differently, like I was a tool he could use rather than a person. What changed 8 months ago? Lauren took a deep breath. I overheard a conversation. Derek was on the phone in his office and I was putting the girls to bed. He didn't know I was in the hallway. He was talking about a shipment, about moving something valuable, and he mentioned using my nursing credentials to access certain facilities. Vincent's expression hardened slightly. He wanted to use you to facilitate illegal operations. Yes. I realized he'd been working toward this for months. All the questions about my work schedule, my access badges, the security protocols at the hospital. He wasn't interested in me as his wife. He wanted access to what I could provide. So you left? I tried to. I packed bags, took the girls, went to stay with a friend. But Derek found us within 2 days. He didn't threaten me overtly. He was too smart for that. He just explained very calmly that if I left, if I caused problems, he'd make sure I never saw my daughters again. He had lawyers, connections, and enough dirt on me that he manufactured from nothing that he could convince any court I was unfit. Lauren's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed forward. I went back. For the girls. But I also started preparing. I documented everything I could, his phone calls, his associates, his schedule. I took pictures of documents he left out. I recorded conversations. I built a case. And 6 months ago, you filed for protection. Yes, I finally had enough evidence that my lawyer thought we could win. The protective order was granted, and Derek was furious. But he complied publicly while violating it privately. He'd show up at the hospital, at the girls' school, at the grocery store. Never close enough to be arrested, but close enough that I knew he was watching. What happened 3 weeks ago that made you run? Lauren's eyes filled with tears. Derek's debt came due. I don't know the full details, but I heard him on the phone with someone who scared him, which was terrifying because Derek doesn't scare easily. They wanted their money, and Derek didn't have it. But he told them he had something better. Information, access, leverage. You, Vincent said. Me, and my hospital credentials, my knowledge of pharmaceutical storage protocols, my access to certain medications and supplies. Derek had planned to use me to help steal high-value medical supplies, specific things his associates needed. When I left him, I didn't just take away his wife. I took away his solution to a very dangerous problem. The pieces were falling into place now, forming a picture that was both clearer and more concerning than Vincent had initially thought. Derek Hayes wasn't just a man trying to control his ex-wife. He was a desperate person in debt to dangerous people, and Lauren represented his only way out. "Do you still have the evidence you collected?" Vincent asked. Lauren nodded. "It's in a safety deposit box. I couldn't access it when we were running. I was too afraid Derek would be watching the bank. But it's there. Recordings, photographs, documents, everything. That evidence could put Derek and his associates away for a significant time. I know, but it also makes me dangerous to them. As long as I have that information, Derek can't afford to let me go. He needs to either force me to cooperate or make sure I can never testify." Vincent leaned back in his chair, processing everything Lauren had told him. The situation was more complicated than a simple domestic dispute. Lauren Hayes had made herself an existential threat to Derek's criminal network, and they would hunt her relentlessly until that threat was neutralized. "You did the right thing," Vincent said finally, "documenting everything, protecting your daughters, running when you had to. You survived, and you kept them safe. That took incredible strength." Lauren's eyes met his, and for the first time since waking, some of the fear in them eased slightly. "I don't feel strong. I feel terrified and exhausted and like I'm barely holding everything together. That's what strength looks like sometimes. It's not about being fearless. It's about being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway." "What happens now?" Lauren asked, her voice small. "I can't run forever. Eventually Derek will find us, he always does." Vincent's expression hardened, his steel-gray eyes taking on a quality that made him look exactly like what he was. Someone who'd built an empire on being strategic, ruthless when necessary, and absolutely uncompromising when protecting what he considered his. "Now," Vincent said quietly, "Derek Hayes learns what happens when he hunts people under my protection, and his associates learn that Chicago has rules, and they just broke the most important one." "What rule is that?" "You don't hunt children in my city. You don't terrorize mothers who are just trying to keep their families safe, and you definitely don't do either of those things and expect there to be no consequences." Lauren stared at him, trying to process the shift in his demeanor. The kind man who'd made pancakes with her daughters was still there, but underneath was something harder, colder, more dangerous. "I don't want more people to get hurt because of me," she said. "No one's going to get hurt," Vincent replied. "But Derek and his associates are going to learn that you're not alone anymore, that you have protection they can't overcome and resources they can't match, and they're going to make a choice. Walk away permanently or face consequences that will destroy everything they've built. You'd do that? For us? For people you just met?" Vincent looked at Lily and Lucy, who were watching the conversation with wide, intelligent eyes. Then he looked back at Lauren, at the bruises on her face and the hope fighting with fear in her eyes. "Yes," he said simply, "I would. Because somewhere in the middle of the night, between finding them in the rain and watching them sleep safely under his roof, Vincent Hale had made a decision that went beyond logic or strategy. He'd decided these three people mattered, that their safety mattered, that standing between them and the darkness that had been chasing them mattered more than maintaining his careful distance from anything personal or emotional. "What do you need from me?" Lauren asked. "Right now, I need you to rest, to heal, and to let me handle the next steps. My associate Marcus is gathering more detailed information about Derek's operations and his debt situation. Once we have the full picture, we'll make a plan." "And the evidence I collected?" "We'll retrieve it when it's safe to do so. That information is valuable. It's leverage, protection, and potentially the key to putting Derek away permanently." Lauren nodded slowly, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. The twins had both rested their heads on her arms, forming their protective huddle again. "Vincent," Lauren said quietly, "why are you really doing this? And please don't say it's just because you were there. People are there for bad situations all the time and they drive past. They look away. They convince themselves it's not their problem. But you stopped. You helped. You're still helping. Why?" Vincent was silent for a long moment, considering his answer carefully. He could give her a surface reason, a practical explanation about territory and rules and maintaining order in his city. All of that would be true but incomplete. "Because someone should have stopped for me once," he finally said, his voice quieter than before. "When I was young, scared, and running from something I couldn't control, someone should have stopped, helped, made sure I was safe. No one did. I survived anyway, but it cost me parts of myself I'll never get back. He looked at Lily and Lucy, seeing echoes of his own childhood in their careful, watchful eyes. I can't change my past, but I can stop for someone else's present. And maybe that matters. Maybe that means something. Lauren's eyes glistened with tears. It means everything, she whispered. The morning continued with surprising normalcy. Vincent showed Lauren to a bedroom upstairs where she could rest properly. The twins refused to leave her side, so he brought coloring books and crayons he kept in storage, remnants from a nephew's visit years ago. Marcus returned around noon with more information, his expression grim as he pulled Vincent into the kitchen for a private conversation. Derek Hayes has escalated, Marcus reported quietly. He's reached out to contacts throughout the South Side, offering a reward for information about Lauren's location. The word is spreading fast. How much is he offering? $5,000 for confirmed information, $10,000 for actual location and retrieval. Vincent's jaw tightened. That was significant money for the kind of people Derek associated with, enough to motivate serious searching. There's more, Marcus continued. Derek's debt isn't just to the Riverside leadership. He borrowed from someone above them, someone with connections to operations outside Chicago. The timeline for repayment is 48 hours from now. If he doesn't deliver either the money or Lauren's cooperation, the consequences will be severe. Severe how? Let's just say Derek will need to leave the city permanently or face removal from the equation entirely. Vincent processed this information, running through various scenarios and strategies. Derek was desperate, which made him dangerous. But desperation also made people make mistakes, take risks, expose vulnerabilities. What about the protective order? Can we use that? Already looked into it. Lauren would need to file a report of violation, which means going to police, giving statements, potentially testifying. The legal system would move, but not fast enough to help her right now. Derek has at least 48 hours before his debt comes due, which means he has 48 hours to find her. Then we need to move faster than that. What are you thinking, boss? Vincent's eyes were cold, calculating. I'm thinking Derek Hayes needs to understand that some debts aren't worth paying, and his associates need to understand that hunting Lauren Hayes is going to cost them more than they could possibly gain. You're going to confront them directly, not confront, negotiate, from a position of strength they can't ignore. Marcus nodded slowly, understanding the approach. Vincent didn't operate through random confrontation. He operated through strategic pressure, through making it clear that certain courses of action would have consequences far beyond what anyone was willing to accept. I'll need you to arrange a meeting, Vincent said, with the Riverside leadership. Make it clear this is a courtesy conversation, one chance to resolve the situation peacefully before I decide to take a more direct interest in their operations. They'll wonder why you care about one woman and 2 kids. Let them wonder. All they need to know is that Lauren Hayes is under my protection, and anyone who continues to search for her is making a very expensive mistake. Marcus pulled out his phone to start making arrangements. Vincent returned to the living room, where he could hear the quiet sounds of children coloring and Lauren's soft voice reading from one of the books he'd provided. Standing in the doorway, watching this small scene of domestic peace, Vincent felt something shift in his chest. These 3 people, this mother and her daughters, had stumbled into his world by accident, by pure chance on a rainy night when he happened to be in the right place at the right time. But there were no accidents, Vincent had learned. Only moments that tested what you were made of, that revealed who you truly were beneath all the careful construction of reputation and power. And in this moment, Vincent knew exactly who he was. Someone who would burn down every obstacle, challenge every threat, and use every resource at his disposal to make sure Lauren Hayes and her daughters never had to run through the rain again. Derek Hayes was about to learn that hunting the wrong person could cost everything, and the clock was already ticking. 3 days passed in the safe house, and with each passing hour, something unexpected began to happen. The walls started coming down. Not the physical walls. Those remained secure, reinforced, protecting the small family from the dangers that lurked outside. But the invisible walls, the ones built from fear and trauma, and years of learning not to trust, not to hope, not to believe that safety could be real, those began to crumble piece by cautious piece. Vincent watched it happen with quiet fascination. On the second morning, Lucy had appeared in the kitchen doorway while Vincent was making coffee. She'd stood there silently for several minutes, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit before finally speaking. "Can I ask you something?" Vincent had turned, giving her his full attention. "Of course. Are you going to make us leave?" The question had landed in his chest with unexpected weight. No, Lucy. You can stay here as long as you need to, until it's safe for you to go somewhere else. That's a promise. Lily says you keep your promises. Lily's right. I do. Lucy had nodded solemnly, processing this information with the serious consideration of someone far older than 6. Then she'd walked over to the kitchen table and climbed into a chair, apparently deciding that Vincent's presence was acceptable for breakfast. It had been a small moment, barely worth noting, but Vincent understood its significance. Lucy had made a choice to trust him, even just a little, and in doing so, she'd opened a door. Lily had followed her sister's lead by that afternoon, asking Vincent if he knew how to play checkers. He didn't, but he'd learned quickly, letting the little girl teach him with patient instructions and occasional gentle corrections when he made rookie mistakes. You're getting better, Lily had announced after their third game, but you still telegraph your moves too obviously. Marcus, watching from across the room, had barely contained his laughter at hearing someone critique Vincent Hale's strategic thinking. Lauren had been slower to warm, which Vincent completely understood. She carried the weight of adult awareness, of knowing exactly how dangerous their situation remained despite the temporary safety of the safe house. She watched Vincent with careful eyes, studying his interactions with her daughters, looking for cracks in the facade, waiting for the moment when his kindness would reveal itself as something else. But that moment never came. Instead, she witnessed Vincent reading bedtime stories to the twins with genuine patience, his deep voice softening as he navigated the adventures of talking animals and brave children. She saw him teach Lucy how to make hot chocolate with exactly the right ratio of chocolate to milk, treating her precise measurements with the same seriousness he'd give a business negotiation. She watched him handle Lily's nightmare on the second night, appearing at the bedroom door within seconds of the little girl's frightened cry, sitting beside the bed in the darkness, speaking in quiet, steady tones until the fear subsided and sleep returned. These weren't the actions of someone playing a role or manipulating a situation. These were the actions of someone who genuinely cared, who'd decided these 3 people mattered, and who was following through on that decision with consistency and attention. On the third evening, while the twins were absorbed in an animated movie Marcus had brought over, Lauren found Vincent standing at the window, looking out at the street below. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and deep purple. "Thank you," Lauren said quietly, moving to stand beside him. Vincent glanced at her. The bruising on her face had begun to fade, shifting from deep purple to yellowish green. The cut on her forehead was healing cleanly. She looked better, rested, some of the exhaustion finally beginning to lift from her shoulders. "For what specifically?" Vincent asked. "For everything, but especially for the way you are with Lily and Lucy. They've been through so much, seen so much, and they've learned to be afraid of almost everyone. But with you, they're starting to remember how to be children again." Vincent was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "They're remarkable kids. Strong, smart, resilient. That's because of you, Lauren. Because you protected them, taught them, kept them whole, even when everything else was falling apart. I don't feel like I did enough. I should have left Derek sooner. Should have protected them from ever experiencing any of what they experienced. You did what you could with the options you had. That's all anyone can do. And you're here now. They're here now, and they're safe. That's what matters." Lauren turned to face him more fully. "Marcus told me you've been making arrangements, meetings with people connected to Derek's organization." Vincent wasn't surprised Marcus had shared that information. Lauren deserved to know what was being done on her behalf. "Yes, I've been having conversations with the people Derek answers to, making it clear that continuing to search for you is not in their best interests. Will they listen? They will, because I'm making them an offer that's better than what Derek can provide, and I'm making it clear that the alternative to accepting my offer is significantly worse for their operations. I don't understand how you can do that, how you have that kind of influence." Vincent's smile was slight, almost rueful. "I've spent 15 years building a reputation and a network in this city. People understand that when I make certain commitments, I follow through completely. That reputation has value. It makes negotiations more straightforward." "You're talking about your business?" Lauren asked carefully. "Yes. My business operates in spaces that exist between legal and illegal, managing situations that traditional systems can't or won't address. I maintain territory, enforce agreements, and ensure certain operations run smoothly without interference. It's not noble work, but it's necessary work in the world I inhabit." Lauren absorbed this, her expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. And now you're using that influence to protect us. I am. Why? The question she'd asked before, but this time it carried different weight. This time it wasn't about understanding his initial choice to help. This was about understanding why he continued to help, why he invested time and resources and political capital into 3 people who couldn't offer him anything in return. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, watching the last light fade from the sky. Because some things matter more than business strategy or territorial control. Because I looked at your daughters, at their fear and their courage, and I saw children who deserved better than what the world was giving them. And because I looked at you, barely conscious, injured, exhausted, and your first words weren't, "Help me," or "Save me." They were, "Please don't hurt them." That kind of love, that kind of sacrifice deserves to be protected. Lauren's eyes glistened with emotion. I'm scared that Derek will find us anyway. That all of this, the safety, the peace, the hope that maybe we can actually have a normal life, will be taken away. He won't find you. And even if he tried, he'd have to go through me first. That's not a challenge he's equipped to face. You sound very certain. I am certain. Because I've made a decision, Lauren. And when I make decisions, I see them through completely. You and Lily and Lucy are under my protection. That means something in this city. It means people who want to reach you have to consider whether the cost is worth it. And I've made sure the cost is far too high. Lauren looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something, reassurance, perhaps, or evidence that his words matched his intentions. Whatever she was looking for, she seemed to find it, because some of the tension in her shoulders finally eased. I've spent so long not trusting anyone, she said quietly. Not letting anyone get close because closeness meant vulnerability and vulnerability meant danger. But you've been nothing but kind and patient and protective, and I don't know how to reconcile that with everything I've learned about keeping people at a distance. Then don't reconcile it yet, Vincent suggested. Just accept it for what it is. Help, freely given. Safety, genuinely offered. No hidden agendas, no expectations of payment or reciprocation. Just one person choosing to protect another because it's the right thing to do. That simple? That simple. From the living room came the sound of children's laughter, Lily and Lucy responding to something in the movie, their voices light and unguarded in a way they hadn't been when Vincent first found them. The sound was beautiful, full of innocence reclaimed and childhood briefly restored. They laugh now, Lauren observed, her voice thick with emotion. For weeks they barely spoke above a whisper. They were so careful, so quiet, always watching for danger. But here, with you, they laugh again. That's because they feel safe. Children are remarkably resilient when they're given the space to heal. It's not just the space, it's you. The way you interact with them, treat them like their thoughts and feelings matter, like they're people deserving of respect and patience. Derek never did that. He saw them as obligations, complications, things to be managed rather than loved. Vincent's expression hardened slightly at the mention of Derek, but his voice remained gentle. Derek made choices that revealed who he is. You made different choices that revealed who you are. And your daughters know the difference even if they can't articulate it yet. They know their mother loves them more than anything. That knowledge will sustain them through whatever comes next. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression indicating he had news. Vincent excused himself, following his associate to the kitchen where they could speak privately. The meeting's set, Marcus reported quietly. Tomorrow afternoon. Riverside leadership has agreed to sit down and discuss the situation. Their tone? Cautious. They know Derek has become a liability. His debt, his desperate searching, his willingness to break the protective order publicly. It's drawing attention they don't want. They're open to solutions that resolve the problem cleanly. Good. That gives us leverage. Boss, I have to ask, what's your end game here? We secure Lauren's safety, Derek backs off or gets removed from the equation, and then what? She can't stay in the safe house indefinitely. Vincent had been considering this question himself over the past few days. The immediate threat was being addressed through negotiation and strategic pressure. But the long-term situation required different thinking. Lauren needs to rebuild her life, Vincent said. She needs a stable home for her daughters, employment that uses her nursing skills, and legal protections that ensure Derek can never threaten her again. I can facilitate all of that. You're talking about setting her up completely. New identity? No, that won't be necessary. But a new apartment in a secure building, assistance with legal fees for making the protective order permanent and ironclad, connections to help her get reinstated at the hospital or find equivalent work. A fresh start, properly supported. That's comprehensive. It's what's needed. Lauren isn't someone who wants to depend on others. She wants independence, safety, and the chance to give her daughters a normal childhood. I can provide the foundation for that. The rest will be up to her. Marcus studied his boss's face carefully. You care about them. About her. Vincent didn't deny it. Yes, that's complicated, boss. Caring about people makes you vulnerable in ways that strategy and power can't protect against. I know, but some complications are worth accepting. The next morning brought new energy to the safe house. Vincent had arranged for additional supplies to be delivered. New clothes for Lauren and the twins, books, art supplies, even a small tablet loaded with educational games and children's programming. Lily and Lucy's delight at having new things was tempered by confusion. Why are you giving us presents? Lucy asked seriously. It's not our birthday. Because I wanted to. Vincent replied simply. Is that okay? Both girls nodded enthusiastically, already absorbed in exploring their new treasures. Lauren pulled Vincent aside later that morning, her expression a mixture of gratitude and concern. You've already done so much. The clothes alone must have cost. Don't worry about cost, Vincent interrupted gently. Worry about whether the sizes are right and whether the girls like the colors. Those are the things that actually matter. Vincent, I can't just accept all of this without... Yes, you can. You can accept it as what it is. Someone making sure you and your daughters have what you need. There's no debt being created here, Lauren. No obligation or expectation. Just help. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to thank you. Then don't. Just focus on healing, on planning what comes next for you and the girls. That's thanks enough. That afternoon, Vincent left for his meeting with the Riverside leadership, leaving Marcus at the safe house to maintain security. The meeting location was neutral territory, a restaurant in a business district, public enough to discourage anything inappropriate, but private enough for frank conversation. 3 men were waiting when Vincent arrived. Carl Morrison, the operational head of the Riverside organization, his lieutenant, James Chen, and their legal counsel, David Wright. They rose as Vincent approached, the greeting cordial but cautious. Mr. Hale, Morrison said, extending his hand. Thank you for reaching out. We've been hoping to discuss this situation with you. Vincent shook hands and took his seat, declining the offered drink. Then let's discuss it plainly. Derek Hayes has become a problem that's affecting multiple parties. I'm here to propose a solution that serves everyone's interests. We're listening, Morrison replied. Derek's debt to your organization is $40,000 due in 24 hours. He doesn't have the money and can't acquire it. His proposed solution involved using his ex-wife's medical credentials to facilitate certain operations. That solution is no longer available because Lauren Hayes is under my protection. The 3 men exchanged glances. Morrison spoke carefully. We heard rumors to that effect. May I ask why you've taken an interest in this particular domestic situation? Because Lauren Hayes and her children were being pursued and threatened, and I don't permit that kind of behavior in my city. My reasons are irrelevant. What matters is that the situation has changed and Derek's proposed solution won't work. That leaves us with a significant problem, Chen observed. Derek's debt is real, and the timeline for payment is inflexible. I understand. Which is why I'm prepared to settle Derek's debt in full immediately, in exchange for several conditions. This caught their attention. Morrison leaned forward slightly. What conditions? First, Derek Hayes is removed from your organization permanently. No exceptions, no reinstatement. Second, all searching for Lauren Hayes stops immediately, and her name is removed from all organizational records and conversations. Third, a message goes out through your networks that Lauren Hayes and her daughters are off limits permanently. Anyone who approaches them or attempts to locate them will answer to me personally. Wright, the attorney, spoke up. That's a substantial set of demands for $40,000. The $40,000 is a business transaction. The conditions are about establishing long-term stability. Derek has demonstrated poor judgment, drawn unwanted attention, and created legal liability for your organization through his attempts to circumvent a court-ordered protective order. Removing him and resolving the situation cleanly protects your operations from future complications. Morrison considered this carefully. And if we decline your offer? Vincent's expression remained neutral, but his voice carried an edge of steel. Then I take a more direct interest in your organization's activities. Supply chains get disrupted. Operations face unexpected scrutiny. Territory agreements get renegotiated. Nothing permanent. Nothing that couldn't be resolved eventually, but expensive and time-consuming enough that $40,000 seems like a bargain in comparison. The silence that followed was weighted with calculation. Morrison and his associates were doing exactly what Vincent expected, running cost-benefit analyses, considering outcomes, evaluating whether accepting his terms or challenging them offered better prospects. "Derek won't take this well," Chen finally said. "Derek's feelings are his problem, not mine. He created this situation through his own choices. Now he faces the consequences. But those consequences don't have to extend to your organization if we resolve this cleanly." Morrison exchanged glances with his associates, then nodded slowly. "Your terms are acceptable. We'll take payment for the debt, remove Derek from our operations, and ensure the message about Lauren Hayes is distributed clearly through our networks." "Excellent." Vincent pulled out his phone and made a brief call. Within minutes, Marcus confirmed that the payment had been transferred. Vincent showed the confirmation to Morrison, who verified it and nodded. "Business concluded," Morrison said. "Derek will be informed today that his employment is terminated and his debt is settled. We'll make it clear that any further attempts to locate or contact his ex-wife will result in permanent consequences for him." Vincent stood. The meeting concluded. "I appreciate your willingness to resolve this reasonably. Mr. Hale, may I offer some advice?" Morrison asked, as Vincent prepared to leave. "Of course. Personal involvement in situations like this can be complicated. I hope you know what you're taking on." Vincent's slight smile held no humor. "I know exactly what I'm taking on, and I'm prepared for all of it." He left the restaurant with the satisfaction of knowing the immediate threat had been neutralized. Derek's debt was paid. His access to organizational resources was cut off, and clear boundaries had been established about Lauren's protected status. But Vincent also knew this was only the first step. Derek himself remained a variable, desperate, angry, and potentially unpredictable. That would need to be addressed separately. For now, though, Vincent could return to the safe house with good news. The walls that had been protecting Lauren and her daughters were stronger than ever, and the bridges that had been forming between them, built from trust earned through consistent action, were becoming strong enough to support whatever came next. The call came at 3 in the morning. Vincent was awake instantly, his phone vibrating on the nightstand. Marcus's name lit up the screen, and Vincent knew immediately that something had shifted. Marcus didn't call at this hour unless it was urgent. "Talk to me," Vincent said, already standing and reaching for his clothes. "Derek knows. Someone talked. He's on his way to the safe house. We have maybe 20 minutes. Vincent's blood ran cold. "Get everyone to the basement, now." He was dressed and moving within seconds, his mind already calculating options and responses. The safe house had been chosen specifically for situations like this. It had a reinforced panic room in the basement, multiple exit points, and security systems that would buy them precious time. But 20 minutes wasn't much of a head start. Vincent made it to the safe house in 12 minutes, his SUV eating up the distance through empty streets. Marcus met him at the door, his expression grim but controlled. "Lauren and the girls?" Vincent asked immediately. "Basement safe. Scared but unharmed." "Derek's position?" 6 blocks out and closing. He's not alone. Brought 2 people with him. They're driving slow, probably looking for the exact address." Vincent's jaw tightened. Derek had violated every boundary, ignored every warning, and now he was bringing confrontation directly to the place where Lauren and her daughters should have been safe. "Get the local authorities on standby," Vincent said quietly. "Anonymous tip about suspicious activity in the neighborhood. I want them close but not engaged yet." Marcus nodded and made the call. Vincent descended to the basement, where Lauren sat on the floor with Lily and Lucy pressed against her sides. All 3 pairs of eyes turned to him as he entered, fear evident but controlled. "He found us," Lauren whispered. "Derek found us. He found the address," Vincent corrected gently, kneeling in front of them. "But he's not going to reach you. I promise." "Vincent, he won't stop. He never stops." "Then we make him stop. Permanently. Legally." Vincent looked at the twins, their small faces pale but trusting. "I need you 3 to stay right here. This room is secure. Reinforced walls, locked door, no way in except through me. Marcus will stay with you. I'm going to handle Derek." "What are you going to do?" Lily asked, her voice small. "I'm going to have a conversation with him. A very clear conversation about what happens next." Lauren grabbed Vincent's hand. "Please be careful. Derek is desperate, and desperate people do unpredictable things." "I know, but I'm prepared for unpredictable." Vincent returned upstairs, positioning himself in the living room where he had clear sightlines to all entry points. His phone showed the security camera feeds. 3 figures approaching the house, Derek in the lead. When the doorbell rang, Vincent almost smiled at the audacity. Derek was treating this like a social call rather than a violation of multiple court orders and agreements. Vincent opened the door, his body blocking the entrance completely. Derek Hayes stood on the porch, 32 years old, average height, with the kind of restless energy that suggested someone running on adrenaline and poor decisions. His 2 companions hung back slightly, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Derek Hayes," Vincent said calmly, "you're in violation of a protective order, trespassing on private property, and making a series of choices that will have permanent consequences. I suggest you leave immediately." Derek's laugh was bitter. "You're Vincent Hale. I know who you are, but you don't get to keep my family from me. They're not your family anymore. The court documents are very clear about that. You have no legal right to contact Lauren or approach her daughters." "Legal right?" Derek's voice rose. "She's my wife, those are my kids. Some piece of paper doesn't change that." "Actually, it does. And you're about to discover exactly how much that paper changes things." Vincent pulled out his phone, showing Derek the screen. "I'm currently recording this conversation. You've just admitted to knowingly violating a protective order. The authorities are 3 minutes away. You have 2 choices. Leave now and face only the consequences of tonight's violations, or stay and add additional charges to an already substantial list." Derek's face flushed with anger. "You think you can just take them? Buy them with your money and your connections? I didn't take anyone. I provided safety to a woman and her children who were being pursued and threatened. There's a significant difference. Lauren belongs with me. We're a family." "No," Vincent said quietly, his voice carrying absolute certainty. "You're a person who caused harm, made threats, and created an environment so dangerous that a mother chose to run through the rain at night with 2 small children rather than stay near you. That's not family. That's what family runs from." Derek took a step forward, but Vincent didn't move. The 2 men locked eyes, and in that moment Derek understood exactly who he was facing. Vincent Hale wasn't just protecting Lauren because of some abstract principle. He was protecting her because he decided she mattered. And when Vincent decided something mattered, he committed completely. "This isn't over," Derek said, his voice shaking with rage and something that might have been fear. "Yes, it is. Lauren has evidence. Recordings, documents, photographs of your activities and your associations. That evidence is currently in the hands of federal prosecutors who are very interested in your organization's operations. You have 2 options. Accept that your relationship with Lauren is finished and move on with your life, or fight this and spend the next decade dealing with legal consequences that will destroy everything you have left." The sound of sirens grew audible in the distance. Derek's companions shifted nervously, clearly wanting to leave. "You're making a mistake," Derek said, backing toward the street. "No, you made the mistakes. I'm just ensuring you face the appropriate consequences." Derek and his companions retreated to their vehicle just as 2 police cars turned onto the street. Vincent stepped outside, hands visible, and calmly explained the situation to the arriving officers. A man violating a protective order, approaching a protected residence, making threats. The officers took Derek into custody without incident. His companions were questioned and released. The entire confrontation lasted less than 15 minutes, but it changed everything. Because Derek Hayes had just created a documented pattern of violation that would ensure the protective order became permanent, ironclad, and enforced with serious consequences for any future violations. Vincent returned to the basement, where Lauren, Lily, and Lucy waited. When they saw his face, saw that he was unharmed and calm, some of the terror finally began to ease from their expressions. "It's over," Vincent said simply. "Derek has been taken into custody. The protective order violations are documented. Federal prosecutors have the evidence you collected. He can't hurt you anymore." Lauren's hand covered her mouth as tears began to fall. Not tears of fear this time, but of relief so profound it overwhelmed her. The twins pressed closer to their mother, and Vincent gave them space for their private moment of release. Later, after the authorities had left and statements had been given, after Lauren had finally stopped shaking and the twins had fallen into exhausted sleep, Vincent and Lauren sat in the quiet living room. "What happens now?" Lauren asked. "Now we build your future. I've arranged for an apartment in a secure building. Safe, comfortable, close to good schools for the girls. I have connections at Mercy General who can help facilitate your return to work when you're ready. The legal protections are in place. You're free to start over. Vincent, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. You don't need to thank me. Just build a good life for yourself and your daughters. That's thanks enough. Lauren looked at him for a long moment. Will we see you again? After we move to the apartment and start rebuilding? Vincent hesitated. The question carried weight beyond its simple words. Do you want to see me again? Yes, Lauren said without hesitation. The girls ask about you constantly, and I'd like to get to know the person who saved our lives. Not as protector or rescuer, but just as Vincent. Something shifted in Vincent's chest, something warm and unexpected and cautiously hopeful. I'd like that too. 3 months later, Lauren stood in her new apartment, watching Lily and Lucy play in their bright, cheerful bedroom. The walls were painted in colors they'd chosen themselves. The window looked out over a safe neighborhood with parks and other children playing. She had returned to work at the hospital, her skills welcomed back immediately. The protective order was permanent. Derek was facing charges that ensured he'd be occupied with legal problems for years. And Vincent had become part of their lives in ways Lauren never expected. He came for Sunday dinners. He taught the twins to play chess. He listened when Lauren needed to talk about rebuilding her confidence and her future. Something was growing between them. Careful, gradual, built on foundation of trust earned through consistent action and genuine care. It wasn't about rescue or protection anymore. It was about two people discovering they wanted to know each other, to build something together. Lauren's phone buzzed with a message. See you tomorrow for the girls' soccer game. She smiled and typed back, we'll save you a seat. Outside, the sun was setting over Chicago. The storm that had brought them together felt like a lifetime ago. Now there was only light, possibility, and the knowledge that sometimes the darkest nights led to the brightest mornings. Sometimes the rain brought exactly what you needed, even if you didn't know you needed it. And sometimes the most unexpected encounters became the most important chapters of your life.